You might find yourself wondering why the scales of justice appear so tilted, why those who cause pain walk on silk carpets, while those with kind souls often struggle through thorns. It is a natural feeling, a human ache for fairness that makes us question if the laws of cause and effect are truly real, or if they have somehow forgotten to visit certain doorsteps. When you see a person who has built their success on the tears of others, standing tall and smiling in the sunlight, please do not let that sight wither the garden of your own kindness. Life is not a short race that ends at the finish line of a single day, but a vast and intricate tapestry where every thread is woven by hands we cannot always see. The light of the sun falls on everyone, but the shadow each person casts is entirely their own, and it follows them with a silence that is more certain than any spoken word. There was once a young man named Sangamaji, a monk who sat in perfect stillness under a tree, and his story reminds us of the profound depth of an undisturbed mind. One day, his former wife brought their small child and laid the infant right in front of him, demanding that he take care of his family instead of seeking peace. Sangamaji remained as silent as a stone mountain, not out of coldness, but because his heart had transcended the narrow boundaries of personal possession and resentment. Even when she walked away and left the child crying there, he did not waver, for he understood that every being is the owner of their own actions and the heir to their own path. Eventually, seeing his unshakable serenity, the woman took the child back and left, realizing that his peace was not something she could break with her anger. Like that monk, we must learn to look at the world with a vision that goes beyond the surface of what is visible right now, understanding that what looks like a reward for the wicked is often just the fading glow of a candle that was lit long ago. We often forget that a person might be reaping the fruits of good seeds they planted in a distant past, even while they are busy sowing weeds in the present. The universe does not settle its accounts every evening at sunset, but it never loses a single grain of sand in the ledger of our intentions. When you see someone who is unkind yet prosperous, think of it as a traveler who is using up the last of their clean water while walking deeper into a vast, dry desert. They may look refreshed today, they may look comfortable under their shade, but they are not replenishing their supply, and the path ahead is very long. Fairness is not always immediate, and justice is not always loud. It works in the quiet accumulation of moments, in the way a heart becomes either lighter than a feather or heavier than a leaden weight. We should never envy the gold that is stolen, because the burden of the theft stays in the soul long after the gold has been spent or lost. Every act we perform is like an echo in a deep valley. It may take time for the sound to travel back to us, but it is always our own voice that we eventually hear. If you choose to be kind even when it is difficult, if you choose to be honest even when it seems to slow you down, you are building a house on a foundation of solid rock. Think of the way a river flows. It does not complain about the boulders in its way, it simply finds a path around them, knowing that its destination is the vast and welcoming ocean. The people who act with malice are like the boulders. They may stay in one place for a long time, looking strong and immovable, but the water eventually wears them down to pebbles. Your kindness is the water. It is soft and yielding, yet it is the most powerful force in the world because it can transform the very landscape of existence. In the ancient times, there was a man named Chunda who lived a life of simple honesty, and though he did not have great wealth, his heart was a fountain of joy. He once offered a meal that was humble, yet it was given with such purity of intent that it became one of the most significant offerings in history. It reminds us that the value of our lives is not measured by the size of our bank accounts, but by the quality of the peace we carry within us. A person who is rich in things but poor in spirit is like a person who owns 1,000 lamps but has no fire to light them. The world is a mirror, and if we look into it with a face of anger, we will see an angry world looking back at us, but if we smile with genuine compassion, the reflections begin to change. Do not be discouraged by the apparent success of those who lack virtue, for their success is a house built on shifting sands, and the tide of time is always moving. The peace you feel when you help another, the warmth in your chest when you do the right thing, these are the true riches that no one can take away and no market can devalue. Life is a teacher that speaks in a language of experiences, and sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that help us grow the most beautiful flowers of wisdom. We must trust that the law of karma is not a punishment, but a natural balance, like the way the earth pulls everything toward its center. Nothing is ever lost, and no good deed is ever truly hidden, it is all recorded in the vibration of our own being. When we feel the sting of unfairness, let us take a deep breath and remember that our journey is unique, and we are not competing with anyone else for the prize of happiness. True happiness is not found by stepping over others, but by reaching out a hand to lift them up, even if they do not thank us. The sun does not ask for thanks before it shines, and the rain does not wait for a permit before it falls to nourish the parched ground. The story of the world is still being written, and each of us holds a pen that is dipped in the ink of our intentions. If we write with love, the story becomes a masterpiece, regardless of how many difficult chapters we have to pass through. Those who choose the path of darkness may seem to have a head start, but they are running in the wrong direction, away from the light of their own true nature. We often mistake the silence of the universe for indifference, but it is actually a profound patience that allows every soul the time to realize its own mistakes. If justice were instant, we would have no room to learn, no space to grow, and no opportunity to change our hearts. The delay is a gift of mercy, a chance for the one who has wandered off the path to find their way back before the night falls. Keep your heart open and your spirit light, for you are a part of a much larger harmony that is always seeking to resolve itself. The discord we see is just a small part of a grand symphony, and every note, even the ones that sound harsh right now, will eventually find its place in the final melody. You are doing well, and your goodness is a beacon that helps others find their way, even if you do not realize it. Every small act of patience, every moment where you choose not to return a harsh word with another, is a victory for the light. These victories may not make the news, and they may not bring you fame, but they weave a garment of protection around your soul that is stronger than any armor. The world needs your gentleness more than it needs more critics, and your quiet strength is a more powerful teacher than any loud lecture. Think of the lotus flower, which grows in the mud but remains unstained by it, rising through the dark water to open its petals to the morning sun. We too can live in a world that is sometimes messy and unfair, yet we can remain pure and beautiful in our intentions. The mud is actually necessary for the lotus to grow, just as the challenges we face are the very things that help us develop our strength and our compassion. If we only saw goodness and fairness everywhere, our hearts would never learn the depth of true forgiveness or the power of unconditional love. The presence of those who act poorly gives us the chance to practice being better ourselves, to show that a different way of living is possible. We are not here to judge the journey of others, but to make sure our own steps are firm and headed toward the light. When the mind is troubled by the success of the wicked, it is helpful to look at the stars and realize how vast the cosmos is and how brief our time here truly is. In the grand scale of time, the rise and fall of a greedy person is like the flicker of a firefly, here for a moment and then gone. What remains is the quality of the love we shared and the peace we cultivated within ourselves. Let us be like the earth, which accepts everything that falls upon it, whether it is sweet rain or bitter waste, and turns it all into life and growth. The earth does not complain, it simply continues to support everyone, and in its silence, it is the most powerful of all. We can find that same stability within us if we stop comparing our lives to the illusions of others and start living from the truth of our own hearts. The beauty of a sunset is not diminished because someone is not looking at it, and your worth is not decreased because someone fails to see it or treats you poorly. You are a precious part of this existence, and your kindness matters more than you can possibly imagine. It ripples out in waves that touch hearts you will never even meet. Trust in the process of life, and trust in the goodness that you carry, for it is the only thing that truly lasts. The world may seem chaotic, but there is an underlying order that is as steady as the turning of the seasons. Just as winter always gives way to spring, the coldness of injustice will eventually be warmed by the sun of truth. We just need to have the patience to wait for the flowers to bloom in their own time. In every moment, we have the choice to add to the beauty of the world or to add to its burdens. When we choose beauty, we become part of the solution, a small but vital part of the healing that our world so desperately needs. Do not let the shadows of others dim your light, but rather use your light to show them that there is a better way to walk. The stories of old tell us of many who sought power through harm, only to find that it was a hollow shell that offered no comfort when they were alone with their thoughts. True power is the ability to stay calm when the storm is raging, to stay kind when the world is harsh, and to stay true to yourself when everyone else is wearing a mask. This is the power that brings real peace, the kind of peace that can never be bought or sold. As we walk this path together, let us hold hands in spirit and encourage each other to keep going, even when the road is steep and the mist is thick. We are never truly alone, for the wisdom of the ages is like a lantern in our hands, and the love in our hearts is like a fire that keeps us warm. Every step taken in goodness is a step toward home, toward a place of rest where all questions are answered in the silence of understanding. Your life is a precious gift, and every breath is an opportunity to start anew, to let go of old grudges and to embrace the present with a fresh and open mind. Do not waste your energy on anger toward those who do not understand the law of life, for their own actions will be their most honest teachers in time. Instead, focus on the beauty that is right in front of you, the small wonders that often go unnoticed but are the true essence of living. A flower does not compete with the flower next to it, it just blooms, and in doing so, it makes the whole garden a better place. You too should just bloom in your own way, with your own unique fragrance of kindness and integrity. The world is waiting for your light, and your presence is a blessing to everyone who crosses your path. As the day turns into night and the stars come out to watch over us, let us find comfort in the knowledge that we are held in the arms of a universe that is wise and just in ways we are only beginning to grasp. Rest deeply, knowing that your goodness is seeds planted in fertile soil, and the harvest will be more beautiful than you can ever dream. The light you give today will surely find its way back to you, perhaps in a different form, but always with the same warmth and the same love. Thinking about the way life unfolds, it is easy to feel that the heart of the universe is silent, yet that silence is actually a deep, attentive listening to every thought we harbor and every intention we nurture. When we observe someone who has gained much through deceit, we must realize that they are merely borrowing from a future that will eventually ask for repayment with interest. True wealth is not found in the things we can touch or count, but in the peaceful sleep of a person who has caused no harm to any living being. There was a story from the time of the Buddha about a man named Achala, who came to the monastery feeling very frustrated because he felt the monks were either too silent or spoke too much. He was looking for a perfect balance that suited his own temper, and when he didn't find it, he felt the world was being unfair to his needs. The Buddha gently reminded him that there is no one in this world who is only blamed, and no one who is only praised, for even the earth itself is walked upon by the good and the bad alike. This reminds us that if we seek external validation or an immediate sign of justice, we might miss the quiet transformation happening within our own spirits. The person who chooses a path of shadows may have a house filled with light, but if the soul is in darkness, no lamp can truly brighten their experience of living. It is like wearing a coat made of heavy gold. It looks magnificent to those standing far away, but for the one wearing it, it is a tiring burden that makes every step a struggle. Your simplicity and your honesty are like a light linen garment, allowing you to move through life with a grace and a freedom that the wealthy but wicked can never know. Imagine a vast ocean where every wave believes it is separate from the water, fighting to be higher and stronger than the wave next to it. In their struggle, they create foam and noise, but eventually, every wave must return to the same deep, still ocean from which it arose. The people who act with cruelty are just waves that have forgotten they are the ocean, and their frantic efforts to stay on top are born from a deep, hidden fear of being lost. When you understand this, your anger begins to turn into a soft, quiet pity, for you see that they are fighting a battle they can never truly win. In the old Chronicles, there is a mention of a king who had everything a man could desire, yet he could not find a moment of rest because he had taken his throne by force. He spent his nights staring at the shadows on the walls, fearing that the very walls would speak of his deeds, while the gardener who slept on a mat of straw outside dreamt of blooming flowers and singing birds. The gardener was the true king of his own mind, while the monarch was a prisoner in a palace of his own making. Justice was not delivered by a court, but by the very quality of their dreams. We must be careful not to let our desire for justice turn into a poison that embitters our own hearts, for to hate the hateful is to let them win a second time. If they take your peace by their actions, and then take your joy through your resentment, you have given them more power than they ever deserved. Instead, hold on to your kindness as if it were a precious jewel, for it is the only thing that remains bright even when the world around it grows dim. The law of the universe is like a master musician who knows exactly when to strike each note to create a perfect harmony, even if we only hear a few discordant sounds in the present moment. We are only listening to a few bars of a song that spans across many lifetimes, and what seems like a mistake now is often the necessary preparation for a beautiful resolution later. Trust that the music is headed toward a place of balance, and that your role is to keep playing your own part with sincerity and love. There was a humble woodcutter who lived near a great forest, and he was known for never taking more than he needed, always leaving enough for the forest to regrow. People laughed at him, saying he would never be rich like the merchants who cleared whole hillsides for profit. Years later, when a great drought came, the merchants' lands were barren and dry, but the woodcutter's small patch remained green and cool because he had respected the balance of nature. His reward was not a bag of coins, but the shade of the trees and the water in his well when everyone else was thirsty. It is helpful to remember that our actions are the only things we truly take with us when we leave this world, like a shadow that never leaves our side. Everything else, the fame, the houses, the money, and the titles, are just items we have rented for a short stay in this physical form. If we spend our time collecting heavy things that we cannot keep, we arrive at the end of the journey exhausted and empty-handed. But if we collect moments of compassion and acts of hidden generosity, we carry a light that will guide us through any darkness. The fairness of life is often hidden in the way our character is forged through the fires of difficulty. A person who has never faced unfairness may be soft and easily broken, but you, who have seen the world and still chose to be good, have a strength that is like tempered steel. This strength is a gift that no amount of stolen wealth can buy, and it is a foundation that will support you through whatever changes the seasons may bring. Sometimes, the best way to deal with the sight of the successful wicked is to simply look away and focus on the small, beautiful things that are within your reach. A kind word to a stranger, a gentle hand on a shoulder, or a moment of quiet gratitude for the air in your lungs, these are the things that build a life of true meaning. We do not need to be the judges of the world, we only need to be the caretakers of our own souls. Think of a person who is planting poisonous seeds in a garden but expects to harvest sweet fruit just because they are wearing expensive clothes. The clothes do not change the nature of the seed, and the harvest will be exactly what was sown, regardless of how much they try to hide it. You, on the other hand, are planting seeds of peace and jasmine, and though they may take longer to grow, the fragrance will eventually fill your entire life and the lives of those around you. In the teachings of the wise, it is said that a single lamp can dispel the darkness of 1,000 years, and a single moment of true understanding can wash away a lifetime of confusion. Do not let the long history of human greed discourage you, for the potential for goodness is always fresh and always available in the very next breath. You have the power to change the atmosphere of a room just by being present in it with a calm and loving heart. When you feel the weight of the world's injustice, imagine you are a mountain that is being pelted by a small storm of pebbles. The pebbles may sting for a moment, and they may make a little noise, but the mountain remains unmoved, deep-rooted, and majestic. Your core being is that mountain, and the actions of others are just the weather passing by, unable to change the fundamental truth of who you are. The path of goodness is often a lonely one, but it is a path that has been walked by the greatest souls who ever lived. When you choose to be fair when others are not, you are joining a noble lineage of light-bearers who have kept the flame of humanity alive through the darkest ages. You are never truly alone when you walk in the company of your own integrity, for that integrity is a friend that will never betray you. Let us look at the world with the eyes of a mother who sees her children making mistakes. She does not hate them, but she hopes they will learn better before they hurt themselves too much. Those who act with malice are like children playing with fire. They think it is bright and exciting, but they do not yet realize it will burn their own hands. Our role is not to demand their immediate punishment, but to keep our own hands clean and to be ready to offer help when they finally realize the pain they have caused. True success is the ability to look in the mirror at the end of the day and feel a sense of quiet contentment, knowing that you have been a source of healing rather than a source of hurt. This is a wealth that can never be stolen, a fame that can never be tarnished, and a power that can never be overthrown. You are building a kingdom within yourself, and its borders are defined by the reach of your compassion. The stars do not shine only for the virtuous, they shine for everyone, but only those with a peaceful mind can truly appreciate their beauty. The wicked are often too busy guarding their gains to ever look up and see the wonder of the universe, and in that loss, they are already being punished in a way that is more profound than any prison. To lose the capacity for wonder and the ability to feel simple joy is a heavy price to pay for any material advantage. As we continue this journey together, let us remember that every day is a new canvas, and we are the artists of our own experience. We can choose to paint with the colors of resentment and envy, or we can choose the vibrant hues of hope and kindness. The choice is ours in every moment, and that choice is the ultimate expression of our freedom. The world is slowly turning toward the light, even if it doesn't always feel that way, and every time you choose to be patient, you are helping that turn happen a little faster. You are a vital part of the world's awakening, and your small acts of goodness are like the first chirps of birds before the dawn. Trust in yourself, trust in the path, and know that everything is unfolding exactly as it should in the grand design of life. There is a subtle beauty in the way the morning mist clings to the valley, hiding the path forward, much like the way the results of our actions are often obscured by the fog of time. You might observe a person who has thrived by stepping on the dreams of others, and it feels as though they are immune to the gravity of their own choices, yet the universe has a way of balancing itself that is far more sophisticated than any human law. We often forget that the mind is its own place, and it can make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven, regardless of how much gold is piled up in the corner of a room. The ancient stories tell of a wealthy man named Anathapindika, who was known for his immense generosity, but there was a time when his fortune began to dwindle, and he found himself with very little to give. Even then, he continued to share his meager portions of rice with the same joy and devotion as he had when he was the richest man in the land. His peace did not come from his overflowing granaries, but from the realization that the act of giving is its own reward, a cleansing of the spirit that no thief can reach and no misfortune can diminish. This teaches us that the person who possesses much but gives nothing is actually the poorest of all, living in a constant state of fear and lack. When we see the prosperous wicked, we are looking at a snapshot, a single frame in a movie that spans across eons, and we must realize that the scene will change. Just as a fire consumes the very wood that sustains it, a heart filled with greed eventually consumes its own capacity for genuine connection and simple happiness. They may have many associates, but they have no true friends. They may have many followers, but they have no one who truly knows their heart. This isolation is a silent prison, a consequence that begins the very moment a person decides to abandon their integrity for a fleeting advantage. Imagine a bird that thinks it is clever because it has stolen a heavy golden chain from a palace window. It flies away feeling superior to the other birds, but soon the weight of the gold begins to pull it down. It cannot fly as high, it cannot escape the predators, and it cannot even land on a thin branch to rest without falling. The other birds, though they have no gold, are light and free, soaring into the clouds with a song that the golden bird has forgotten how to sing. Life is much like that, where the things we take without merit become the weights that prevent us from reaching the true heights of our potential. In the old texts, there is a mention of a person who tried to hide their misdeeds by building a temple of incredible beauty, thinking that the stones and the carvings would balance the scales of their soul. However, the Buddha taught that the only true temple is the one we build within ourselves through the practice of mindfulness and the cultivation of a loving heart. No amount of outward decoration can cover the smell of a decaying spirit, just as no perfume can truly hide the scent of something that is not fresh. The truth has a way of breathing through every crack, and it eventually fills the room whether we want it to or not. You should never feel that your quiet life of honesty is a waste, for you are creating a legacy of peace that will ripple through your family and your community for generations. The vibration of a kind soul is like a bell that continues to ring long after the initial strike, touching the hearts of those who are weary and giving them hope. Those who choose the path of cruelty are like a stone thrown into a pond. There is a loud splash and a lot of bubbles, but soon the water closes over it and it is forgotten in the mud at the bottom. There is a profound dignity in being able to sleep with a clear conscience, a luxury that no amount of money can purchase for the one who has lived a life of lies. Every time you choose to do the right thing, even when no one is watching and even when it costs you something, you are adding a layer of strength to your character that is more durable than diamond. This internal consistency is the source of a radiant confidence that does not need to shout or boast, it simply is, and people feel its warmth whenever you are near. Think of a garden where some plants are forced to grow quickly with artificial chemicals. They look large and green for a while, but their roots are weak and their fruit has no flavor. Then there are the plants that grow slowly in the natural sun and rain. Their roots go deep into the earth, and when the harvest comes, their fruit is sweet and nourishing. The success of the wicked is often like that forced growth. It lacks the substance and the depth that only comes from a life lived in harmony with the natural laws of existence. We must also remember that the person we perceive as bad is also a being who is suffering under the weight of their own ignorance, caught in a cycle of craving that never ends. They are like someone trying to quench their thirst by drinking salt water. The more they drink, the thirstier they become, and the more desperate their actions get. If we can see them with a sense of compassionate detachment, our own frustration begins to melt away, replaced by a firm resolve to not fall into the same trap of thinking that external things can fill an internal void. The fairness of life is often found in the quality of our relationships, for love is a mirror that reflects the state of our own hearts. A person who is manipulative and cruel will always suspect others of being the same, living in a world of shadows and distrust where every smile is a potential trap. But you, who live with an open heart, are able to see the goodness in others and to build bridges of trust that make life a beautiful adventure rather than a constant battle. This ability to love and be loved is the greatest treasure any human being can possess. It is often said that the wheels of justice grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine, and nothing is ever overlooked in the long run of our journey. We do not need to be the ones who turn the wheel, we only need to make sure we are not standing in its way by holding on to anger or a desire for revenge. Letting go of the need to see others punished is a profound act of self-liberation. It clears the air around us and allows us to focus on the magnificent task of our own growth. In the ancient times, there was a gardener who served a cruel master, yet the gardener always spoke to the flowers with the same gentleness and care, regardless of how he was treated. When people asked him why he bothered to be so kind in such a harsh environment, he replied that the flowers did not belong to the master, they belonged to the earth, and his service was to the beauty of life itself. We too can choose to serve the beauty of life, regardless of the behavior of those who think they are in control, for their power is an illusion that will fade with the setting sun. Your heart is a sanctuary, a place of refuge that you can return to whenever the world feels loud and confusing. By keeping this sanctuary clean and bright, you are providing a space for your own soul to breathe and for your wisdom to grow. The success of those who act without virtue cannot enter this sacred space unless you invite it in through the door of envy, so keep that door closed and focus on the light that is already shining within you. Life is a teacher that often gives the test before the lesson, and the test of seeing the wicked prosper is one of the most difficult of all. If you can pass this test by remaining steadfast in your own goodness, you will find that the lesson is one of incredible depth and power. You will realize that you are not dependent on the world's version of fairness to find your own peace, and that realization is the beginning of true freedom. Let us be like the moon, which reflects the light of the sun without trying to own it, and which moves through the sky with a silent grace that calms the night. The moon does not care about the barking of the dogs below, it simply continues its journey, illuminating the world for everyone who cares to look up. Your life can be that same kind of steady, silent light, providing a sense of direction and a feeling of peace for anyone who is lost in the darkness of their own confusion. The stories we tell ourselves about the world are what shape our experience of it, and if we tell ourselves a story of unfairness and bitterness, that is what we will live. But if we tell a story of growth, of learning, and of a deep, underlying harmony that is always working for the good of all, then our world becomes a place of wonder and possibility. You have the power to choose the story you live in, and I hope you choose one that is filled with light and with the courage to be kind. Every breath is a chance to reset the scales, to let go of the past and to step into the present with a heart that is ready to love. Do not let the actions of others dictate the quality of your existence, for you are the master of your own inner world. The peace you cultivate today is a gift not only to yourself but to the entire universe, for a single peaceful heart is a powerful force for healing in a world that is often in pain. As we move forward, let us hold on to the simple truth that goodness is its own reward and that the peace of a quiet conscience is the most valuable thing we can ever own. The shadows will always be there, but they only serve to make the light appear even brighter, and your light is more than enough to guide you through any valley. Trust in the goodness that you are, and know that you are loved and supported by the very fabric of existence. The rhythm of the world often feels like the steady, patient heartbeat of an old forest, where the tall trees do not boast about their height, and the small mosses do not complain about their place on the ground. We sometimes look at those who have gained their status through sharp words or cold hearts, and we feel a sting of doubt, yet we must realize that a life without the fragrance of virtue is like a beautiful silken robe wrapped around a hollow statue. The statue might look grand in a hallway, but it has no heart to feel the warmth of the sun, and no lungs to breathe in the sweet air of a spring morning. There is an old story about a royal minister who was so clever that he could manipulate every situation to his advantage, and he became the wealthiest man in the kingdom by weaving a web of small betrayals. One evening, as he walked through his vast gardens, he saw a group of children playing with pebbles, laughing with a joy that was so pure it made his own heart feel like a heavy, cold stone. He realized that in all his getting and taking, he had accidentally traded away his ability to feel that simple, unburdened happiness, and he spent the rest of his nights trying to buy back a feeling that only comes to those who walk with clean hands. We often imagine that the results of our actions are like a thunderclap that everyone must hear, but in reality, the most profound changes happen in the quiet, invisible layers of our own character. A person who lives with malice is slowly turning their own inner world into a desert, where the flowers of empathy and trust can no longer bloom, and that barrenness is a punishment far more lingering than any public disgrace. You, on the other hand, are like a gardener who is carefully tending to the soil of your spirit, and even if your garden is small, the life that flourishes there is vibrant, authentic, and truly yours. Think of a traveler who carries a bag of heavy, jagged rocks, believing they are precious gems because they were stolen from a sacred mountain. The traveler is so busy guarding the bag and struggling under its weight that they never look up to see the majestic peaks or the golden light of the setting sun. The success of those who act without kindness is often that bag of rocks, a burden that they are too proud to drop and too fearful to share, while you walk with light steps and open eyes. In the ancient scrolls, it is said that the greatest strength is not the power to conquer others, but the power to conquer the impulses of greed and anger within oneself. When you see a person who is cruel and yet sits in a position of authority, remember that they are often a slave to their own desires, driven by a hunger that can never be satisfied no matter of how much they consume. To be free from that hunger, to be content with enough, and to be at peace with the truth is the ultimate sovereignty that no earthly king can take away from you. The world is like a vast, resonant hall where every thought we think and every word we speak creates a vibration that lingers long after the sound has faded. When we fill our lives with kindness, we are creating a harmony that supports us even in our most difficult hours, providing a cushion of grace that the wicked can never experience. Their world is full of echoes of their own harshness, a constant, underlying noise of suspicion and fear that makes true rest impossible, even on a bed of the finest down. There was once a simple man who worked in the king's kitchens, and though he had very little, he always shared his laughter and his small portions of bread with the stray cats that lived behind the palace. Years later, when the kingdom faced great changes and the high officials were lost in their own anxieties, the kitchen worker remained calm and cheerful, for his happiness was not tied to the titles or the treasures of the court. He understood that a heart that knows how to give is a heart that can never be truly poor, and that realization gave him a dignity that surpassed the most elaborate royal robes. We should not be troubled by the speed at which others seem to rise, for a building that is constructed too quickly on a foundation of sand will always tremble when the winds of change begin to blow. Your life is being built with the slow, deliberate care of a master craftsman, using the bricks of patience, the mortar of honesty, and the blueprints of compassion. This structure is meant to last, to provide shelter not just for yourself, but for anyone who needs a place of kindness in a world that can sometimes be very cold. The universe does not operate on the clock of our human impatience, but on the timeless scale of cosmic balance, where every debt is eventually settled and every gift is eventually returned. We do not need to be the accountants of other people's lives, for the law of life is a perfect system that requires no external enforcement and no witnesses to be effective. Our only task is to keep our own hearts in tune with the music of the truth, and to trust that the melody of justice is always playing, even when the notes are too low for us to hear. Imagine a person who is trying to stop the tide of the ocean by building a wall of dry leaves. They may work very hard and look very busy, but the ocean does not even notice their efforts. The actions of the wicked are like that wall of leaves, a temporary distraction that will eventually be washed away by the deep, powerful currents of reality. Your goodness, however, is like the water itself, fluid, persistent, and connected to the vastness of everything, able to wear down even the hardest rocks over time. In the stories of the elders, we are reminded that a single candle can light thousands of other candles without losing any of its own brilliance, and in the same way, your kindness is a flame that can transform your surroundings without diminishing you. The person who tries to steal light from others only ends up living in the shadows of their own making, for light is meant to be shared, not hoarded. By being a source of warmth and clarity, you are fulfilling your highest purpose, and that fulfillment is a joy that remains long after the temporary thrills of the world have vanished. The peace you feel when you forgive someone who has wronged you is not a favor to them, but a gift to yourself, a breaking of the chains that would otherwise keep you tied to their negativity. When you let go of the need for an immediate settling of the score, you are stepping into a larger space of freedom where the actions of others can no longer touch your core. This is the true meaning of being well off, to have a mind that is not for sale and a heart that is not for rent. As the trees shed their leaves in the autumn to prepare for the new growth of spring, we too must learn to let go of the heavy feelings of unfairness to make room for the new wisdom that is trying to enter our lives. Every challenge we face, including the sight of the successful wicked, is an invitation to deepen our understanding and to strengthen our resolve to be a force for good. We are being refined by our experiences, polished like a stone in a rushing river until we shine with a light that is all our own. Your presence in this world is not an accident, and your commitment to a life of integrity is a vital part of the healing that our society needs so much. Do not let the loud voices of the greedy drown out the quiet whisper of your own conscience, for that whisper is the voice of the truth itself. You are doing a beautiful job of navigating a complex world, and your steady, gentle spirit is a lighthouse for many souls who are struggling to find their way through the mist. Trust in the quiet power of your own goodness, for it is a seed that contains the entire forest of your future happiness, waiting for the right moment to bloom. The world may look at the surface and see only the wealth or the power, but the universe looks at the heart and sees the light, and it is the light that truly matters in the end. Keep walking your path with courage and with a smile, for you are exactly where you need to be, and you are doing exactly what you were meant to do. The stillness of a deep lake often reflects the sky so perfectly that we forget the water has its own depth, its own hidden currents, and its own life moving beneath the surface. When we observe someone achieving a high status through deceit, we are only looking at the reflection on the surface, seeing the bright colors and the stillness, but we rarely see the internal turbulence required to maintain such an illusion. To live without truth is to live in a state of constant repair, forever patching up the holes in a story that the soul knows is not its own, and that constant effort is a form of exhaustion that no vacation or luxury can ever truly heal. There is a beautiful account of a simple potter who lived in a village during the time of the great masters, and he was known for making vessels that were not only strong but seemed to hold a certain warmth within them. A wealthy merchant once tried to buy the potter's secret, offering him chests of silver to explain how he made his clay so special, but the potter simply smiled and said that the secret was not in the clay but in the silence of his heart while he worked. He did not rush, he did not cheat the fire, and he did not envy the porcelain of the palace, for he knew that a vessel made with a clear mind brings peace to whoever drinks from it. Your life, your daily work, and your interactions are like the clay in that potter's hands, and when you refuse to cut corners or compromise your values, you are infusing your existence with a quality that is rare and precious. The person who thrives by being shrewd or cold is making vessels that may look shiny, but they are brittle and often leak the very joy they are supposed to hold. It is far better to have a simple life that is whole and leak-proof than a grand life that is constantly draining your spirit into the dry sand of anxiety. Think of the stars that appear in the night sky, they do not struggle to shine, and they do not ask if the stars next to them are brighter or if they are being noticed by the people on earth. They simply exist in their own radiant nature, contributing to the beauty of the night because that is what stars do. When you choose to be kind, when you choose to stay honest despite the pressure to be otherwise, you are shining in your own natural way, and your light is part of a cosmic order that does not depend on the approval or the success of others. In the ancient teachings, there is a story about a traveler who found a diamond in the dust and, instead of keeping it, gave it to a beggar who was passing by. The beggar was overjoyed, thinking his troubles were over, but a few days later he returned the diamond to the traveler, saying that he wanted the treasure that allowed the traveler to give away such a stone so easily. The true wealth was not the diamond, but the inner freedom that made the diamond feel like just another pebble. Those who act with greed are often possessed by their possessions, while you, in your simplicity, possess the entire world because you have no fear of losing it. We must understand that every time we feel a pang of resentment toward a successful person who lacks virtue, we are actually underestimating the value of our own peace. It is like trading a bag of pearls for a shiny piece of broken glass because the glass happened to catch the sunlight for a brief second. Your pearls are your integrity, your quiet nights, and your ability to look anyone in the eye without a mask, and these are things that the wicked would give all their stolen gold to have if they only knew how much they were suffering. The world sometimes feels like a busy marketplace where everyone is shouting to sell their wares, and the loudest voices often get the most attention, but the most important transactions happen in the silence of the heart. When you help someone without telling anyone, or when you choose the hard truth over the easy lie, you are building a credit of character that pays dividends in the form of a steady, unwavering self-respect. This self-respect is the only armor that truly works against the arrows of misfortune, for it keeps you upright when everything else is trying to pull you down. Imagine a bird that builds its nest in a tall, sturdy tree, trusting the strength of the branches more than the strength of its own wings. If the tree falls, the bird is lost, but the bird that trusts its own wings can land on any branch, and even if the branch breaks, it simply flies to another. Those who rely on external power, stolen wealth, or manipulated influence are like the bird trusting the tree. Their safety is always fragile and dependent on things outside themselves. You, through your commitment to goodness, are developing your own wings, a strength that belongs entirely to you and can never be taken away. The ancient sages used to say that a person's character is like a fragrance that precedes them into a room and lingers long after they have left. A person who is cruel may carry the scent of expensive perfume, but the underlying bitterness of their spirit still reaches the hearts of those around them, creating a subtle sense of unease. Your fragrance is one of sincerity and warmth, a scent that comforts the weary and encourages the lost, and this is a form of influence that is far more profound than any title or position of authority. Let us not be fooled by the scenery of the present moment, for life is a long and winding road with many changes in the weather and the landscape. What looks like a straight path for the wicked today may lead to a sudden cliff tomorrow, and what looks like a steep hill for you today may open up into a beautiful meadow just around the corner. The key is to keep walking with a steady pace and a focused mind, trusting that the road itself knows where it is going and that it always honors the honest traveler. When you see the bad people living well, try to see them as people who are stuck in a heavy, elaborate costume that they can never take off. They have to play a role, maintain an image, and guard their borders every single hour of the day, which is a tremendous burden to carry. You, however, have the luxury of being yourself, of being authentic, and of moving through the world with a lightness that comes from having nothing to hide. This authenticity is the ultimate well-being, a state of existence where your inside and your outside are in perfect harmony. The sun does not stop shining because a cloud passes in front of it, and your goodness should not waver just because the shadows of others seem to be growing longer. The cloud is temporary, a passing vapor that has no power over the sun's core, and in the same way, the unfairness of the world is a temporary condition that cannot change the fundamental brightness of a soul that is rooted in the truth. Stay bright, stay warm, and continue to give your light to the world, for that is the very reason you are here. As the river finds its way to the sea through valleys and over rocks, your life is finding its way to a place of deep and lasting fulfillment. Every act of patience is a drop of water that adds to the strength of your flow, and every moment of forgiveness is a clearing of the path. You are part of a great journey, and your role is to keep flowing, to keep being water, and to trust that the sea is waiting for you with open arms. There is a quiet joy in knowing that you are doing your part to make the world a little more gentle, a little more kind, and a little more honest. This joy doesn't need to be shouted from the rooftops, it lives in the small smile you give yourself when you've handled a difficult situation with grace. It is the quiet hum of a soul that is in tune with the universe, a melody that brings a sense of rightness to everything you do. Keep your heart as vast as the sky, where there is room for both the clouds and the sun, for both the storms and the rainbows. By not allowing your mind to be narrowed by bitterness or envy, you maintain the space for wisdom to grow and for love to flourish. You are a masterpiece in progress, and every choice you make is a brushstroke on the canvas of your life. Make sure the colors you choose are the ones you want to live with forever. The soft rustle of leaves in the wind often carries a secret message of patience, a reminder that the tallest oaks were once small seeds that waited through many winters before they reached for the clouds. When we look at those who have climbed to the peaks of success by using others as stepping stones, it can feel as though the world is rewarding the sharpest thorns rather than the most fragrant flowers. However, a peak reached through coldness is a lonely and freezing place, where every gust of wind feels like a threat and every shadow looks like an enemy seeking to take what was never truly earned. There is a story of a traveler who came across two artists competing to paint the most beautiful wall for a grand hall. One artist spent all his gold on the most expensive pigments from distant lands, while the other simply spent his time polishing his wall until it was as smooth and clear as a mirror. When the sun rose, the first wall was colorful, but the second wall reflected the entire garden, the sky, and the light of the sun itself, becoming far more beautiful than any paint could ever be. The person who lives with a pure heart is like that second wall. They do not need to buy or steal external decorations because their very being reflects the infinite beauty of the universe. Your integrity is that polish, a quiet and persistent effort that turns your life into a reflection of the light, and even if people do not notice it immediately, the clarity you feel inside is a treasure that no thief can ever touch. The rich, who lack virtue, are often like the first wall, covered in layers of heavy, expensive paint that eventually cracks and peels, revealing the rough and unpolished stone beneath. It is much better to be a mirror of the truth than a painted facade of a lie, for the mirror only grows more beautiful with time while the paint only fades. Imagine a mountain stream that is blocked by a heavy boulder. The water does not scream in anger or try to push the boulder with a single burst of strength, it simply waits, it fills the space around the rock, and eventually, it flows over the top with a graceful leap. The people who act with malice are like that boulder. They think they are stopping your progress and showing their power, but they are actually giving you the depth and the height you need to find a new and more beautiful way to move forward. Your patience is not a sign of weakness, it is the gathering of your power, a quiet accumulation of wisdom that will eventually carry you over any obstacle. In the ancient records of the monks, there is a mention of a person who tried to disturb the peace of a master by throwing dirt into a clear well every single day. The master did not scold the person, nor did he try to guard the well with weapons, he simply continued to draw the water from the bottom and let the dirt settle at the bottom of the well. Over many years, the dirt became a rich soil at the bottom that filtered the water even more purely, making the well the most famous source of sweet water in the region. The unkindness of others can be the dirt that settles in your life, but if you have the depth of a well, that very dirt will eventually become the foundation of a greater purity and a more profound strength. We must be careful not to let our vision be narrowed by the small windows of time we live in, for a lifetime is just a single heartbeat in the vast body of eternity. A person may seem to be winning in the first few minutes of a game, but the true measure of success is seen when the sun begins to set and the noise of the crowd dies down. To have a heart that is at peace with itself when the lights go out is the only victory that truly counts, a victory that requires no audience and no trophies to be valid. The fairness of life is often hidden in the way our experiences shape our capacity for joy, for a mind that is constantly calculating how to cheat or how to take will eventually lose the ability to appreciate the simple gift of a blooming rose. The wicked are often so busy measuring their piles of gold that they forget to look at the sunset, and in that forgetting, they lose a wealth that is far more valuable than any currency. You, who can still feel the wonder of a bird's song and the warmth of a friend's smile, are possessing a richness that is immune to the fluctuations of any market. Think of a person who is trying to catch the wind in a heavy iron cage, thinking that if they can lock it up, they will own its power forever. They struggle, they sweat, and they guard their cage with great anxiety, but the wind simply moves through the bars, free and untamed, while the person is left holding a heavy and useless piece of metal. Those who seek power through harm are like that person with the cage. They are trying to capture something that can only be experienced in freedom, and in their attempt to own it, they only end up being owned by their own fear. The path of the gentle soul is like a trail of light through a dark forest. It may be thin and it may seem fragile, but it is the only thing that can show the way out to those who are lost. By staying true to your kindness, you are not just saving yourself, you are providing a map for others who are tired of the darkness and the coldness of a life without virtue. Your life is a silent sermon, a living proof that it is possible to be successful in the spirit even when the world seems to favor the ruthless. Let us look at our challenges as the wind that helps a kite to fly higher, for without the resistance, the kite would only stay on the ground. The presence of unfairness is the resistance that allows your character to rise, to soar into the heights of understanding and compassion that would be unreachable in a world of easy perfection. You are becoming something magnificent through the very things that try to hold you back, and one day you will look down from your height and feel a deep gratitude for every wind that ever blew against you. The peace you cultivate in the morning, the small prayers of gratitude you say in the evening, and the quiet moments of reflection you have during the day are the true investments of your life. These are the things that build a fortune of the spirit, a wealth that stays with you across the threshold of death and into the mysteries of what comes next. The well-off wicked are leaving everything behind at the door, while you are carrying a light that will never go out, a treasure that is woven into the very fabric of your soul. Trust in the silence of your own wisdom, for it knows the truth even when your mind is filled with the loud questions of the world. There is a part of you that is never disturbed by the success of the cruel, a part that is as steady and as calm as the deep ocean floor beneath a surface storm. Connect with that depth, live from that stillness, and you will find that the fairness you seek was always there, living in the quiet rightness of your own being. The world will continue to turn, the seasons will continue to change, and the stories of men will continue to rise and fall like the waves of the sea. Through it all, your goodness is the anchor that keeps you steady, the compass that keeps you on course, and the home that always waits for you with an open heart. Do not be distracted by the glitter of the counterfeit, but keep your eyes on the gold of the truth, for it is the only thing that truly shines when the world grows dark. Every act of mercy you show to yourself and to others is a drop of oil in the lamp of your life, keeping the flame bright and the shadows at bay. You are a light bearer in a world that needs light more than anything else, and your commitment to the path of integrity is a heroic act that echoes through the halls of time. Keep shining, keep loving, and keep believing in the quiet justice of the universe, for it is more real than anything you can see with your eyes. The soft glow of a candle does not struggle to push away the darkness, it simply exists as light, and in that existence, the shadows naturally retreat without a single word of conflict. When you observe those who have built their empires on the foundations of broken promises, you are watching a structure that lacks the internal binding of truth, a building that may look sturdy to the eye but shivers at the slightest touch of a sincere heart. We often mistake the lack of immediate consequences for an absence of justice, but justice is not a hammer that falls from the sky, it is a slow, quiet transformation of the inner landscape that turns a garden into a desert or a desert into a sanctuary. There is a tale of a legendary weaver who lived in a small hut at the edge of a great kingdom, and she was known for creating cloth that felt like a second skin, providing warmth in the cold and coolness in the heat. A noble once tried to force her to reveal her secret, believing she used magical threads or hidden spells to achieve such perfection, but she only pointed to the rhythm of her loom and the calmness of her breath. She explained that every thread was laid with a thought of love for the person who would wear it, and that intention was the only magic she possessed. The noble, who lived a life of constant plotting and suspicion, could not understand how something as invisible as a thought could create something as tangible as comfort, and he left her hut feeling more impoverished than when he entered. Your life is a tapestry woven with the threads of your daily choices, and even if no one sees the individual movements of your hands, the quality of the fabric you are creating is undeniable. The person who uses threads of greed and leaves behind knots of pain is weaving a garment that will eventually itch and burn against their own skin, making them restless in the midst of their plenty. You, through your commitment to the quiet path of virtue, are weaving a cloak of peace that will wrap around you with a softness that no amount of money can buy, a protection that is built into the very texture of your character. Think of a massive stone that has been sitting in the middle of a field for centuries. It does not move when the winds howl, and it does not complain when the summer sun beats down upon it. The stone simply stays, and over time, it becomes a home for moss, a resting place for birds, and a landmark for travelers who are trying to find their way home. Your integrity is that stone, a solid and unmoving presence in a world that is often shifting and uncertain, providing a sense of stability and direction for everyone who comes into your orbit. The success of the wicked is like the dust that blows across the field. It may look like it is moving faster than the stone, it may even cover the stone for a moment, but when the wind dies down, the dust is gone and the stone remains exactly where it was. In the old scrolls of the wandering teachers, there is a mention of a person who once tried to steal the fragrance from a sandalwood tree by cutting it down and locking the wood in a heavy iron box. They thought that by owning the wood, they would own the scent, but the more they tried to contain it, the more the fragrance seemed to fade away, until the wood was nothing more than a dry, scentless stick. The sandalwood tree, however, gives its fragrance even to the axe that cuts it, for its nature is to be sweet regardless of what happens to it. You should strive to be like that sandalwood tree, possessing a goodness that is so much a part of your essence that it cannot be taken, only shared, and even when life is harsh, your response is one of grace and perfume. We must realize that the mind that is always looking for a shortcut to happiness is a mind that will always be lost, for happiness is not a destination but a way of walking. The person who cheats their way to the front of the line is still the same person when they get there, carrying the same anxieties and the same lack of self-worth that drove them to cheat in the first place. They have changed their location, but they have not changed their heart, and so the good life they seem to lead is just the old, painful life in a new and more expensive setting. You, by walking the long and honest road, are changing with every step, shedding your fears and growing your wisdom, so that when you reach your goals, you are truly ready to enjoy them. The universe is like a vast, silent ocean that remembers every drop of rain that falls into it, and every act of kindness you perform is a drop that enriches the entire body of water. We do not see the ocean rising with every single drop, but we know that it is the accumulation of these small things that creates the tides and the currents that move the world. Do not be discouraged if your goodness seems to go unnoticed, for it is being recorded in the very rhythm of existence, contributing to a balance that is larger than any individual life. The wicked may splash and make noise on the surface, but they do not touch the depths where the true power of the world resides. Imagine a person who is trying to paint a picture of a beautiful sunrise while sitting in a room with the shutters closed, relying only on their memory and their imagination. They may produce something that looks bright, but it will always lack the vibrancy and the life of the real sun, for they have cut themselves off from the source of the light. Those who live without virtue are like that painter, trying to create a life of beauty while keeping their hearts closed to the truth, and the result is always a hollow imitation of what could have been. Your life, lived in the open air of honesty and compassion, is a living masterpiece that grows more vivid and more real with every passing day. In the stories of the masters, we are reminded that a single word spoken with true compassion can heal a wound that has been open for years, and a single act of selfless service can change the course of a person's entire destiny. This is the real power that we all possess, a power that has nothing to do with wealth or social standing, and it is a power that the wicked can never understand or control. By focusing on how you can be a source of healing in your own small corner of the world, you are exercising a sovereignty that is more profound than that of any earthly ruler. Let us look at our life not as a collection of things we have acquired, but as a collection of moments in which we have been fully present and fully kind. When we look back from the perspective of a quiet evening, it is not the deals we closed or the rivals we defeated that bring us comfort, but the times we listened to a friend in need, the times we were patient when we were tired, and the times we chose the right path even when it was the lonely one. These are the golden moments that form the true wealth of a human being, a currency that never loses its value and can be spent over and over again to buy peace of mind. The path of the heart is like a hidden spring in the mountains. It may not be visible from the main road, but it is the source of the purest water and the most beautiful flowers. Those who stay on the busy highways of ambition and greed may never even know the spring exists, but for those who are willing to climb and to seek, it offers a refreshment that is beyond words. You are a seeker of that spring, and every time you choose kindness over cruelty, you are drawing closer to the source of all life and all joy. Trust in the slow and steady ripening of your own soul, for just as a fruit cannot be rushed into sweetness, wisdom requires time and experience to reach its full flavor. The apparent success of others is not a measure of your failure, it is simply a different part of the forest with different trees and different seasons. Your season of blooming is coming, and it will be all the more magnificent because you have waited for it with a patient and a trusting heart. The peace you find in the middle of a difficult day is a sign that you are connected to something much larger than yourself, a deep well of serenity that is available to everyone who is willing to look within. By keeping your connection to this well clear and open, you are ensuring that you will never truly run dry, no matter how much the world tries to take from you. You are a channel for the light, a vessel for the truth, and a witness to the enduring power of the human spirit to rise above its challenges. As the stars continue their silent dance across the sky, let us find comfort in the knowledge that we are part of a cosmic story that is both ancient and ever new. Our part in the story may be small, but it is essential, and the way we play it matters more than we can possibly know. Keep your heart wide, your mind clear, and your spirit light, for you are a precious part of the whole, and your goodness is a gift to the entire universe. The way a deep forest breathes at midnight tells us that there is a profound order in the universe, a rhythm that does not need to explain itself to anyone who is in a hurry. When we see a person who has gained power through cold calculation, appearing to flourish while others suffer, we must remember that their life is like a kite with a snapped string. For a moment, it may seem to fly higher and more freely than all the others, dancing against the blue of the sky in a way that captures every eye, but because it is no longer connected to the hand of truth, it is actually at the mercy of the wind, and its fall is already beginning. There was once a quiet scholar who lived in a small village, and he spent his days teaching children how to read the ancient signs of the stars and the language of the flowers. A wealthy merchant from the city once passed by and mocked him, pointing out that the scholar's clothes were frayed while his own were made of the finest silks, yet the scholar only smiled and asked the merchant if his silk could protect him from the chill of a lonely heart. The merchant had many servants but no one he could trust with a secret, and he realized that the scholar, in his humble cottage, possessed a clarity of mind that made all the gold in the city seem like heavy, useless sand. We often feel that justice is a distant concept because we look for it in the courtrooms and the balance sheets, forgetting that the most accurate scale of all is the one that exists within our own consciousness. A heart that has been hardened by cruelty becomes a heavy burden for the person carrying it, making every pleasure taste like ash and every success feel like a temporary distraction from a deep, underlying unease. You, who choose to keep your heart soft and your intentions pure, are cultivating an inner light that makes even the simplest meal feel like a banquet and every quiet evening feel like a celebration of life. Imagine a person who is trying to stop the flow of a river by throwing their own shadows into the water, thinking that if they can make the river dark, they can control its destination. The river simply flows through the shadows, remaining clear and strong, while the person stays on the bank, exhausted by the effort of trying to fight something that is much larger than themselves. The success of the wicked is often just a collection of these shadows, a temporary darkening of the surface that cannot reach the deep, powerful current of the truth that carries your life forward. In the old accounts of the mountain temples, there is a story of a bell that was cast with so much care and devotion that its sound could be heard for miles, bringing a sense of peace to everyone who heard it. A jealous rival once tried to silence the bell by wrapping it in heavy blankets, but the vibration of the metal was so strong that it eventually shook the blankets off and rang even more clearly than before. Your goodness is that vibration, a frequency of the soul that is built into the very atoms of your being, and no amount of unfairness or suppression can keep your true nature from ringing out in the silence of the night. We must understand that every act of honesty is a seed that contains the blueprint of a future garden, and even if the soil looks dry right now, the life within the seed is patient and determined. The person who plants thorns of deceit may see them grow quickly, but they will never know the shade of a friendly tree or the fragrance of a blooming rose in their own backyard. By staying true to your path, you are ensuring that your future self will have a place of refuge and a source of nourishment that is entirely independent of the shifting winds of the world's opinions. The universe is like a vast, patient parent who watches its children play, knowing that every mistake is a lesson and every fall is a chance to learn how to stand up with more grace. Those who act with malice are like children who think they can hide their actions by closing their eyes, not realizing that the world sees everything and remembers every movement. You do not need to be the one who points out their errors, for the very structure of reality is designed to guide everyone back to the center, even if the journey takes many lifetimes of wandering in the dark. Think of a bird that finds a tiny, discarded piece of thread and uses it to strengthen its nest, turning something that was considered waste into a vital part of its home. Your challenges, the moments when you felt the world was being unfair, are like those threads, and if you use them with wisdom, they become the very things that make your spirit resilient and your wisdom deep. The person who has never faced difficulty is like a nest built only of soft feathers. It may look comfortable, but it cannot withstand the first storm of the season. The peace you feel when you act with integrity is a signal from the cosmos that you are in alignment with the natural laws of existence, a harmony that is more valuable than any social standing or material wealth. This alignment provides you with a steady, quiet power that does not need to shout to be heard and does not need to push to get its way. You are like the moon, which moves the entire ocean without ever touching a single drop of water, simply by being present and staying true to its own celestial path. Let us be like the tall grass in the meadow, which bows when the strong winds blow and rises again when the air is still, while the stiff and brittle trees are the ones that break in the storm. The success of the cruel is often a form of stiffness, a rigid attachment to their own ego that makes them vulnerable to the inevitable changes of life. Your flexibility, your willingness to forgive, and your ability to find beauty in the small things are the qualities that make you unbreakable, a survivor of the spirit who can flourish in any weather. The stories of the past remind us that the most enduring legacies are not those written in stone or gold, but those written in the hearts of the people we have touched with our kindness. A person may build a monument to themselves, but if they have caused pain along the way, the monument will eventually be seen as a symbol of their own emptiness. Your legacy is being built in the quiet moments of your daily life, in the smiles you share, the patience you show, and the quiet dignity with which you carry your own burdens. Trust in the timing of your own life, for every soul has its own season for blooming and its own time for rest. The fact that someone else seems to be in a perpetual summer of success does not mean that your autumn or winter is a mistake. It is simply a part of the grand cycle that keeps the whole world alive and vibrant. Your time of harvest is coming, and it will be all the richer because you have spent the long nights of waiting in the company of your own goodness. The light that you carry within you is a fragment of the same light that powers the sun and the stars, and it is more than enough to guide you through the thickest mist of confusion. When you feel lost in the shadows of other people's greed, simply turn inward and look at the flame of your own conscience, for it will always point you toward the home of the truth. You are a precious part of the whole, a necessary note in the symphony of life, and the world would be a darker place without your gentle presence. As we continue to walk this road together, let us hold on to the simple joy of being alive and the profound privilege of being able to choose kindness in every breath. The world may be complicated, but our response to it can be simple, a steady commitment to being a source of warmth and clarity for ourselves and for everyone we meet. You are doing a magnificent job of being human, and your efforts are being honored by the very silence that surrounds the stars. The way the morning dew rests upon a blade of grass, without asking for permission or seeking to change the nature of the field, is a quiet lesson in the power of simply being present in one's own truth. When you watch those who have climbed the heights of worldly power through deception, appearing to live lives of undisturbed ease, you must realize that their reality is like a house made of mirrors. From the outside, it reflects the brilliance of the sun and the beauty of the clouds, but for the one living inside, every direction they turn only shows them another version of themselves, trapped in a cold and endless repetition of their own ego. There is a story from an ancient village about a man who discovered a secret spring that produced water so clear it could heal the spirit of anyone who drank it with a sincere heart. A greedy landlord heard of this and built a high wall around the spring, charging a heavy price in gold for every cup, thinking he had captured a fortune. However, the moment he tried to sell the water for profit, the spring went dry, and the water turned into bitter silt, for the spirit of the spring could not be owned or traded. The man who had first found it simply walked to a different part of the forest, sat in silence, and a new spring bubbled up at his feet, because the source was not in the ground, but in the purity of his own intention. Your kindness and your integrity are that secret spring, and though the world may try to build walls around you or overlook your worth, the source of your peace remains untouched and ever-flowing. The prosperous, who act with malice, are forever trying to buy the water that you receive for free, and they wonder why their cups remain empty even when they are filled with gold. To live with a heart that is not for sale is the ultimate luxury, a state of being where you are the master of your own joy and the guardian of your own serenity. Think of the mountain peak that stays hidden in the clouds for many days. It does not doubt its own height just because the travelers in the valley cannot see it. It remains tall, steady, and silent, knowing that the clouds are merely passing vapors that will eventually be dispersed by the wind. Your life of virtue is that mountain peak, and the success of the wicked is the mist that occasionally obscures the view, but the mist has no power to level the mountain or to change the stars that shine above it. In the old chronicles of the desert travelers, there is a mention of a person who carried a small, plain compass that everyone else laughed at because it was not decorated with jewels or housed in silver. When the great sandstorm came and all the landmarks were wiped away, those with the fancy maps and the heavy treasures were lost, but the one with the plain compass found the way to the oasis because his tool was true to the magnetic heart of the earth. Your conscience is that plain compass. It may not look like much in a world obsessed with glitter, but it is the only thing that can guide you through the storms of life to a place of safety and rest. We must learn to appreciate the silence of a good deed, for a heart that does not need applause is a heart that has found its own home. The person who thrives by being loud and ruthless is like a drum that makes a lot of noise because it is empty inside, while your life is like a deep, quiet well that provides nourishment without ever making a sound. The depth of the well is what matters, not the height of the drum, for the drum is eventually silenced by time, but the well continues to sustain life through every season. The universe is a vast echo chamber, and though it may take a long time for the sound of our actions to return to us, the return is inevitable and perfectly tuned to the original note. When you send out waves of patience and understanding, you are creating a resonance that will eventually cradle you in its arms, providing a comfort that no stolen wealth can ever provide. The wicked are living in the chaos of their own discordant noise, a cacophony of suspicion and greed that prevents them from ever hearing the subtle music of the soul. Imagine a person who is trying to catch the moon in a bucket of water, thinking that they have captured the celestial body itself. They guard the bucket with great intensity, fearing that someone will steal their prize, but when the water is disturbed, the moon vanishes, and when the sun rises, it is gone entirely. The success of those who lack virtue is that reflection in the bucket, a flickering image that depends on 1,000 external conditions to exist, while you are looking at the real moon in the sky, a light that remains steady regardless of what happens to the water below. In the teachings of the forest sages, it is said that the greatest gift you can give the world is your own happiness, for a happy heart is a healing presence that requires no words and no effort. When you choose to be good even when it is difficult, you are cultivating a happiness that is rooted in the soil of reality, not in the shifting sands of circumstance. This happiness is a light that shines through your eyes and speaks through your hands, telling everyone you meet that there is a way to live that is beautiful, honest, and free. Let us be like the sandalwood tree, which does not withhold its fragrance even from the one who strikes it with an axe, for its nature is to be sweet, and it cannot be anything else. By refusing to let the unkindness of others turn you into an unkind person, you are proving that your spirit is sovereign and that your character is your own. This is the true meaning of power, not the ability to control others, but the ability to remain yourself in a world that is constantly trying to change you. The path you are walking is a sacred one, and every step you take with sincerity is a prayer that is heard by the very heart of existence. Do not be distracted by the bright lights of the shortcut, for they often lead to a place where the air is thin and the ground is cold. Stay on the winding road of the heart, for it is the only one that leads to the garden of true peace, where the flowers never fade and the water is always sweet. The peace that you feel when you have done your best, even if the result is not what you hoped for, is the universe's way of saying that you have succeeded in the most important way. We are not here to win according to the world's rules, but to grow according to the laws of the Spirit, and in that growth, there is no such thing as failure. You are a masterpiece in the making, and every choice for the good is a stroke of genius that adds to the beauty of your soul. As the night deepens and the world grows quiet, let us find comfort in the knowledge that we are never truly alone, for the wisdom of the ages is like a warm fire in our hearts. Rest in the certainty of your own goodness, knowing that it is a treasure that will never diminish and a light that will never go out. You are doing well, and your life is a blessing to the world in ways that you may never fully understand, but the universe knows, and it honors your journey with a love that is as vast as the sky. The final watch of the night often brings a stillness so profound that the boundary between the earth and the heavens seems to dissolve, leaving only the vast, breathing presence of the truth. When you contemplate the long journey of those who have traded their souls for a temporary seat on a golden throne, you must realize that their story is like a message written in the sand at low tide. It looks bold and clear for a few fleeting hours, but the ocean of time is always returning, and its waves have a gentle, persistent way of smoothing the shore until not a single trace of arrogance remains. There is a beautiful memory of an old master who was asked how he could remain so joyful when he had no possessions and no titles to his name, while the lords of the land were constantly plagued by worry. He pointed to a bird nesting in the eaves of a temple and remarked that the bird does not own the temple, yet it enjoys the shelter, it does not own the sky, yet it enjoys the flight, and it does not own the forest, yet it finds its food. The bird is wealthy because it does not carry the burden of ownership, only the grace of existence, while the lords are poor because they have become the guardians of things that will eventually belong to someone else. Your life is that bird in flight, a movement of pure grace that finds its meaning in the quality of its song rather than the size of its cage. The success of the wicked is a cage made of heavy, gilded bars, and though it may be admired by those who stand on the ground, it is still a cage that prevents the spirit from soaring into the infinite blue of true understanding. To be free of envy is to open the door of your own cage and to realize that the entire universe has always been your home, waiting for you to claim your inheritance of peace. Think of the way a great mountain range meets the horizon. It does not strive to reach the stars, it simply is the height that it is, and its majesty comes from its unwavering stability. The people who act with cruelty are like the clouds that gather around the peaks, sometimes hiding the sun and sometimes bringing the thunder, but they are transient, while the mountain is eternal. Your goodness is that mountain, a monument to the enduring power of the human heart to remain upright and firm even when the weather of the world is at its most turbulent. In the ancient scrolls that record the lives of the truly wise, it is noted that the most powerful form of justice is the one that happens in the silence of a transformed heart. When you see a person who has done wrong and yet seems to flourish, do not ask why they are not being punished, but rather look at the beauty you have cultivated in your own soul and ask if you would ever trade it for their hollow glitter. The answer that rises from your depths is the most honest verdict ever rendered, a realization that your integrity is a reward so great that no worldly treasure could ever equal its value. The universe is a masterpiece of balance, and though the threads may be too fine for us to see, every movement of kindness is a stitch that holds the world together, and every act of honesty is a light that keeps the darkness at bay. You are a vital part of this cosmic weaving, and your refusal to become bitter in the face of unfairness is a heroic act that echoes through the corridors of eternity. The wicked are merely passing shadows in a world that is fundamentally made of light, and their influence is like the smoke from a fire that eventually vanishes into the clear, morning air. Imagine a person who is trying to stop the sunrise by holding up a small, dark cloth. They may believe they have succeeded because their own eyes are covered, but the world around them is already waking up to the dawn. The actions of the cruel are that small cloth, a temporary obscuring of the light that cannot stop the inevitable arrival of the day. Your life is the sunrise itself, a steady and unstoppable emergence of warmth and clarity that nourishes everything it touches, regardless of whether it is welcomed or ignored. As you sit in the quiet of your own heart, let the questions of the world fall away like leaves from an autumn tree, leaving only the sturdy trunk of your own being. You do not need to know how the story ends for everyone else. You only need to know that your own chapters are written with the ink of sincerity and the pen of compassion. This is the only story that truly belongs to you, and it is a story that is being read with great love by the very stars that watch over your sleep. The peace you have found is not a fragile thing that can be broken by the sight of injustice. It is a deep, subterranean river that flows beneath the surface of all things, waiting to be discovered by anyone who is willing to dig deep enough. By staying true to your path, you have become a guide for those who are still wandering on the surface, showing them that the water of life is free and that the source is always within reach. You are a blessing to this existence, a soft word in a loud world, and a gentle hand in a time of harshness. Trust in the silence that follows the storm, for in that silence, the true nature of things is finally revealed, and the balance of the world is restored. Your goodness is a part of that restoration, a quiet and persistent force for the good that is slowly but surely healing the wounds of the ages. Keep walking with your head held high and your heart wide open, for you are exactly where you have always been meant to be, in the arms of a universe that knows your name and honors your light. As the final notes of this melody fade into the quiet of the night, let us hold on to the simple truth that love is the only thing that remains when everything else has passed away. The wealth of the wicked is a dream that ends with the waking, but your kindness is the waking itself, a state of being that is as bright and as clear as the morning sun. You are doing beautiful work, and your soul is a garden where the flowers of wisdom are blooming in their own perfect time. Rest deeply, dear friend, and know that you are loved beyond measure by the very fabric of life that sustains you. The world may be a place of many questions, but in the center of your heart, there is a peace that is the only answer you will ever need. Walk in that peace, breathe in that peace, and be that peace for everyone you meet, for that is the highest purpose of a human life and the ultimate victory of the spirit.